Good morning, Year 5, and welcome back to your first Destination Reader session of the week. We're going to continue reading Matilda by Roald Dahl. Remember, keywords are in red, questions for you to answer are in blue, and writing time is in green. We're going to continue with strategy number 3 today, inference. Remember, inference means to read between the lines. I would like you to remind yourself why good readers make inferences. Make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book, and press play once you are ready to continue. Well done. Good readers make inferences by looking for clues in the text to help them understand more. Authors sometimes leave key information out so that the reader wants to keep on reading to find out more. We're going to move on to our vocabulary for today. We have reassemble, which means to gather together again. So it's kind of like gathering up your things again. We have prospect, which is the likelihood of a future event occurring. And we have porch, which is a covered shelter protecting the front entrance of a building. These are some of the words that you will come across as we read today. We're going to remind ourselves of the different types of questions and answers. I would like you to have a think about what kind of answer a 1-mark question needs. Say your answer out loud and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or your home learning book. Press play once you are ready. Well done. 1-mark questions need a short, snappy answer. Have a think about what kind of answer a 2-mark question needs. I would like you to say your answer out loud and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press play once you are ready. Brilliant, Year 5. 2-mark questions need a PE answer. Point and evidence. Your point is where you write the main idea that you want to talk about, and your evidence is where you prove your point using facts, figures, or more so in our case, examples. Last lesson, I spoke to you about a challenge this week. We're going to move on to something a little bit more challenging. 3-mark questions. 3-mark questions need a point, evidence, and explanation. They need a PEE answer. Your point will be the main idea you'd want to talk about. Your evidence will be where you prove your point using a quotation from the text. And then you need to explain. Why have you made the point, and how does the quotation back up your point? I'm going to give you an example. What do you think is the worst thing about Miss Trunchbull? That's the question, and it's worth 3 marks, so I know that I'm going to need a point, evidence, and explanation answer. Here's my answer. In my opinion, the worst thing about Miss Trunchbull is that she is not sympathetic towards the children, because she is a head teacher and should have the best interest of the children at heart. Miss Trunchbull possesses none of the qualities required of a head teacher, which suggests that she is unapproachable and not very helpful. Therefore, this means that she does not deserve to have her job as a head teacher, and the students at the school might not be receiving the best education possible. I have made my point that I think the worst thing about Miss Trunchbull is that she is not sympathetic. I've used evidence to prove my point. None of these qualities That's a direct quotation that can be found in the book. And then I've explained my point. I've explained how my quotation backs up my point and what it suggests. We're going to introduce 3-mark questions today. It might be a little bit difficult at first, but I would like you to try your best. Before we move on to reading and our questions, I would like you to think about what has happened in our story so far. You don't need to make a note of this, but you can have a discussion perhaps with somebody at home, or you can just say your answer out loud. Press play once you are ready. Well done. We've been introduced to Matilda, the Wormwoods. We know that Matilda has played some tricks on her father in particular, and Matilda has now attended her first day at school. Her teacher is called Miss Honey, and Miss Honey has been very impressed with how well Matilda is doing and with how much knowledge Matilda has for her age. Miss Honey went to Miss Trunchbull to try and tell her about how amazing Matilda is doing, and Miss Trunchbull has already come into contact with Matilda's father and does not believe a word that Miss Honey has said. So we know that Miss Trunchbull and Matilda, something might happen there, because she is basically on the same side as Matilda's father. So I wonder if she'll play some tricks on Miss Trunchbull. Let's continue reading. We're on page 84, The Parents. I will read and you will follow along. We'll stop at certain points to give you time to make inferences. When Miss Honey emerged from the headmistress's study, most of the children were outside in the playground. Her first move was to go round to the various teachers who taught the senior class and borrow from them a number of textbooks, books on algebra, geometry, French, English literature, and the like. Then she sought out Matilda and called her into the classroom. There is no point, she said, in you sitting in a class doing nothing while I am teaching the rest of the form the 2 times tables and how to spell cat and rat and mouse. So during each lesson, I shall give you one of these textbooks to study. At the end of the lesson, you can come up to me with your questions if you have any, and I shall try to help you. How does that sound? Thank you, Miss Honey, Matilda said. That sounds fine. We're going to stop so you can answer a question. Why did Miss Honey borrow textbooks from the senior classes? For 1 mark, have a think about what a 1-mark question will need. I would like you to say your answer out loud and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press play once you are ready. Brilliant. Miss Honey borrowed textbooks so that Matilda can learn at a higher level in class. We know that Miss Honey said that she does not want Matilda wasting her time listening in on things that she already knows. So she would like her to kind of teach herself, and then she'll go to Miss Honey at the end of the end of the lesson with any questions that she has. Let's continue. I am sure, Miss Honey said, that we'll be able to get you moved into a much higher form later on, but for the moment the headmistress wishes you stay where you are. Very well, Miss Honey, Matilda said. Thank you so much for getting those books for me. What a nice child she is, Miss Honey thought. I don't care what her father said about her. She seems very quiet and gentle to me, and not a bit stuck up in spite of her brilliance. In fact, she hardly seems aware of it. So when the class reassembled, remember what reassembled means? It means to gather together again. So they had obviously gone out, and they've come back together again. Matilda went to her desk and began to study a textbook on geometry, which Miss Honey had given her. The teacher kept half an eye on her all the time and noticed that the child very soon became deeply absorbed in the book. She never glanced up once during the entire lesson. Miss Honey, meanwhile, was making another decision. She was deciding that she would go herself and have a secret talk with Matilda's mother and father as soon as possible. She simply refused to let the matter rest where it was. We're going to stop again. I have another question for you. Why do you think Miss Honey was going to visit Matilda's house? For 2 marks. I would like you to say your answer out loud and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press play once you are ready to continue. Well done. My answer is the part where Miss Honey thinks I don't care what her father said about her tells me that she might be going to visit Matilda's house to change her parents' opinion on her. This is because we already know that Miss Honey is determined for people to see Matilda's potential and she wants her to achieve her best. So I think that's the reason that Miss Honey was going to visit Matilda's house. I've made my point, and then I've backed it up with evidence. Let's continue. The whole thing was ridiculous. She couldn't believe that the parents were totally unaware of their daughter's remarkable talents. After all, Mr. Wormwood was a successful motor car dealer, so she presumed that he was a fairly intelligent man himself. In any event, parents never underestimated the abilities of their own children. Quite the reverse. Sometimes it was well nigh possible for a teacher to convince the proud father or mother that their beloved offspring was a complete nitwit. Miss Honey felt confident that she would have no difficulty in convincing Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood that Matilda was something very special indeed. The trouble was going to be to stop them from getting over-enthusiastic. And now Miss Honey's hopes began to expand even further. She started wondering whether permission might not be sought from the parents for her to give private tuition to Matilda after school. The prospect of coaching a child as bright as this appealed enormously to her professional instinct as a teacher. And suddenly, she decided that she would go and call on Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood that very evening. She would go fairly late, between 9 and 10 o'clock, when Matilda was sure to be in bed. And that is precisely what she did. Having got the address from the school records, Miss Honey set out to walk from her own home to the Wormwoods' house shortly after 9. She found the house in a pleasant street where each smallish building was separated from its neighbours by a bit of garden. It was a modern brick house that could not have been cheap to buy, and the name on the gate said Cosy Nook. Nosy Cook might have been better, Miss Honey thought. She was given to playing with words in that way. She walked up the path and rang the bell, and while she stood waiting, she could hear the television blaring inside. The door was opened by a small, ratty-looking man with a thin, ratty moustache, who was wearing a sports coat that had an orange and red stripe in the material. "Yes," he said, peering out at Miss Honey. "If you're selling raffle tickets, I don't want any." "I'm not," Miss Honey said. "And please forgive me for butting in on you like this. I am Matilda's teacher at school, and it is important to have a word with you and your wife." "Got into trouble already, has she?" Mr. Wormwood said, blocking the doorway. "Well, she's your responsibility from now. You'll have to deal with her." "She is in no trouble at all," Miss Honey said. "I have come with good news about her." "Quite startling news, Mr. Wormwood. Do you think I might come in for a few minutes and talk to you about Matilda?" "We are right in the middle of watching one of our favourite programmes," Mr. Wormwood said. "This is most inconvenient. Why don't you come back some other time?" Miss Honey began to lose patience. "Mr. Wormwood," she said, "if you think some rotten TV programme is more important than your daughter's future, then you ought not to be a parent. Why don't you switch that darn thing off and listen to me?" We're going to stop because I have another question. How do we know that Miss Honey does not have a good first impression of Mr. Wormwood? Have a look at this question. It is worth 3 marks. What 3 things are you going to need to have in your answer? Well done. You're going to need a point, a piece of evidence, and an explanation. I would like you to say your answer out loud and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Brilliant effort, Year 5. This is your first 3-mark answer. Let's have a look at what I wrote. I think that Miss Honey does not have a good first impression of Mr. Wormwood because she begins to lose patience with him. I've used a direct quotation from the text. Miss Honey questions whether a rotten TV program, another direct quotation, is more important than his daughter's future. This suggests that Miss Honey thinks that Mr. Wormwood should be putting his daughter's education first and taking interest in her schooling, as she understands how important education is. You may not have used 2 pieces of evidence, but as you practice these questions, you'll be able to add more and more to your answers. Well done for your first attempt. Let's continue reading. That shook Mr. Wormwood. He was not used to being spoken to in this way. He peered carefully at the slim, frail woman who stood so resolutely out on the porch. Oh, very well then, he snapped. Come on in, and let's get it over with. Miss Honey stepped briskly inside. Mrs. Wormwood isn't going to thank you for this, the man said as he led her into the sitting room, where a large platinum blonde woman was gazing rapturously at the TV screen. Who is it? The woman said, not looking round. Some school teacher, Mr. Wormwood said. She says she's got to talk to us about Matilda. He crossed to the TV set and turned down the sound, but left the picture on the screen. Don't do that, Harry, Mrs. Wormwood cried out. Willard is just about to propose to Angelica. You can still watch it while we're talking, Mr. Wormwood said. This is Matilda's teacher. She says she's got some sort of news to give us. My name is Jennifer Honey, Miss Honey said. And we're going to stop there. That's all we have time to read today. I know you want to finish the chapter, but just hold on until tomorrow and we will continue all together. We're going to carry on making inferences and we will continue to practice answering 3-mark questions. Well done for your first attempt today. On your piece of paper or in your home learning book, make a note of anything else that you could infer from today's lesson.